everybody, so we're on our way to, well, I'm going, Sean's not going, to meet Jodi Picoult. I'm so excited, like you don't even know. I'm a little bit nervous, I don't know why. I always get nervous about stuff, I'm weird. So, do you guys like my eye look? I just watched Anna Saccone's naked palette tutorial, and I just did it, and I think it's really pretty. Except for I didn't have black eyeliner or brown eyeliner next to me, so I just used Buck for the eyeliner instead. Anyways,
wow.
What?
On your side of the road, buddy.
Oh, he gave me this weird look. There's Sean.
Yep, you should put this on your channel as well.
Yes, I will. Viewers. So, I hope you guys can see because the sun's in my eyes. So I didn't even have time to blow dry my hair, so it's like a bun. Wet bun. Anyway, so I'm hoping I can get a picture with Jodi. I'm not sure though. So if I do, I will put it in the vlog later before we upload it. And yeah. So I guess that's all for now. There's nothing really more to say.
Oh my
there goes
goodness.
my phone.
That's really loud.
Get a text message. Oh, it's just Twitter. So I'm gonna go because I'm getting blinded by the sun. So we'll see you in a little bit.
With us tonight for the publication of Sing You Home, the paperback. First, I'd like to thank Fran Bissell and the trustees of Maple Street School for providing this wonderful venue for us. They've been great to work with, and so many thanks to them. Jodi Picoult is the best-selling author of 18 novels, including Handle with Care and House Rules, both of which debuted as #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and her newest novel, Sing You Home. Picoult studied creative writing with Mary Morris at Princeton and had 2 short stories published in 17 magazine while still a student. Realism and a profound desire to be able to pay the rent led her to a series of different jobs following her graduation. As a technical writer for a Wall Street brokerage firm, as a copy editor at an ad agency, as an editor at a textbook publisher, as an 8th grade English teacher, all that before entering Harvard to pursue a master's degree in education. She married Tim Van Leer, whom she had known at Princeton, and it was while she was pregnant with their first child that she wrote her first novel, Songs of the Humpback Whale. In 2003, she was awarded the New England Bookseller Award for Fiction, and she has been the recipient of an Alex Award from the Young Adult Library Service Association, the Book Browse Diamond Award for Novel of the Year, a Lifetime Achievement Award for Mainstream Fiction from Romance Writers of America, Cosmopolitan Magazine's Fearless Fiction Award, and many, many other awards. She wrote 5 issues of the Wonder Woman comic book series for DC Comics. And her books are translated into 34 languages in 35 countries. 3 books have been made into television movies, and 1, My Sister's Keeper, is on the big screen. She and Tim and their 3 children live in Hanover, New Hampshire with 2 Springer Spaniels, 2 donkeys, 2 geese, 1 duck, 8 chickens, and the occasional Holstein. That's still accurate?
No, actually, I got to update that. That's
what I'm thinking about. You'll get an update shortly. We'd also like to welcome, as part of the act tonight, musician Ellen Wilbur, who has composed songs for Sing You Home. Wilbur is teacher and musician with over 25 years of experience introducing children to music. She's a member of the Cardigan Mountain Tradition, a bluegrass band, and the founder of a long-running kids' summer theater program. She is the music director of the Trumbull Hall Troupe. Please silent your cell phones, and please join me in welcoming Jodi Picoult and Ellen Wilbur.
It has been a while, and it's nice to revisit a book that I really loved. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where the book came from, and then I'm going to do a short reading. Then you're going to be entertained wildly by Ellen for a few songs, and then we'll come back and let you guys ask me some questions about anything you want. But to begin with, what about Sing You Home? Where did this one come from? Well, this is a book, to me, about gay rights. And gay rights is something I've wanted to write about for a very long time. In my mind, it is the last set of universal rights that we haven't granted in this country. And I don't really understand why we're so far behind the rest of the world. I was already doing research for Sing You Home when something happened in my real life that really changed this book for me. My oldest son, Kyle, who is 20 now, 19 years old. No, he's 20 now, he's 20. Sorry. He was applying to colleges, and he came out in his college essay to my husband and myself. Now, I got to tell you, this wasn't a huge surprise to us, but it was to him, maybe, and it was certainly his story to share. And when I read this essay, he said to me, you know, can we talk about this? And I said, yeah, do you want to talk about the content or the grammar? And he said both. And, you know, and I said, Kyle, we love you. We're so happy for you. Gave him a big hug. And it was a really good experience for Kyle. It is not always a good experience for kids who come out to their parents. Kyle is a junior right now at Yale University. He is an Egyptology major. He runs a theater program for disadvantaged kids in New Haven, and he is also the captain of the freshman ballroom dance team. He teaches the freshmen how to dance. Really, the least interesting thing about my son is that he's gay, honestly. And yet, for me, all of a sudden, the book that I was writing from a very theoretical perspective became extremely personal. Because by the time Kyle is ready to get married and have kids, I don't want him to have to jump through hoops in order to do it. It seems to me that the people who lobby the hardest against gay rights are the people who say they don't really know anyone gay. They don't have a gay friend or a gay relative or a gay butcher or whatever. If they do, they realize that what gay people want is pretty much what straight people want. They basically want to be able to fall in love, to get married, to have a family, very ordinary things. And that was what I wanted to write about in this book. So I began to figure out a story that would allow me to do that. Sing You Home is the story of Zoe and Max Baxter. They've been married for 10 years, and after multiple failed in vitro attempts because of infertility, Zoe winds up getting pregnant and miscarrying in her 8th month. The strain of all of that cumulatively breaks apart the marriage. And this is all happening at the very beginning of the book. And you see Max and Zoe go off in very different ways. Max becomes an alcoholic and finds solace at the bottom of a bottle and winds up getting redeemed by a very evangelical right-wing church. In the meantime, Zoe throws herself passionately into her work. Zoe is a music therapist, which means she uses music in a clinical setting in order to effect some kind of social or behavioral or physical or emotional change in a client or patient. And she's hired by a woman named Vanessa, who is a school counselor, to work with a suicidal girl who's a teenager in the school. Well, while she's working with this girl, she and Vanessa become good friends. And then Zoe realizes one day that she kind of wants to be more than friends. That for the first time in her life, she's fallen in love with a woman. The book, to me, asks, what makes a good parent? How do we define a family? And I'm not going to tell you anything else because I always prefer my characters to speak to you themselves. So instead, I'm going to let Zoe speak to you for a little bit. This is Zoe. Everyone wants to know what the sex is like. It's different from being with a man for all the obvious reasons, and many more that you'd never imagine. It's the freedom to not have to suck in your stomach or think about cellulite. It's being able to say, that feels good, and more important, that doesn't. But the real difference between my marriage to Max and my relationship with Vanessa has nothing to do with sex, actually. It's about balance. We have a household to run. There's no man who's expected to change the light bulbs that burn out or take out the trash. If something heavy has to be moved, we do it together. One of us has to mow the lawn, do the bills, clean out the gutters. You'd think that by now, a few months into this relationship, some of the blush has worn off, that I might love Vanessa but not be quite as in love with her. But that's not true. She's still the one I can't wait to talk to after something phenomenal happens at work. She's the one I want to celebrate with when 3 months after my hysterectomy, I'm still cancer-free. She's the one I want to run errands with on the weekend, which is how we find ourselves in the grocery store on a Saturday afternoon in March, bumping into my ex-husband. I hug him, a reflexive habit, and try not to look at his black suit and skinny tie. That's the uniform of his newly adopted evangelical church, the one I still can't believe he's joined. I can feel Vanessa burning behind me, waiting for an introduction, but the words get stuck in my throat. Vanessa stares at me, and then her mouth tightens. I'm going to go grab the produce, she says, but as she moves away, I feel something snap in my chest, like a string too tightly wound. We're having a chicken pie supper at the church, Max says. You two should come. Fat chance, I think. We'd probably be tarred and feathered. I mumble a response and make a beeline for Vanessa. You're pissed at me, I say. She sets down the fruit. Look, I'm the last person in the world who wants to wave a banner or march in a pride parade. And I get that it's not easy to tell someone you used to love that you love someone else. But when you don't say it out loud, that's when people fill in the silence with their own stupid assumptions. Don't you believe that if Max knew you were in a same-sex relationship, he might think twice before he pickets against gays again? Because all of a sudden, it's not some faceless queer in a crowd, Zoe. It's someone he knows. It's raining by the time I catch up to Max at his truck. That woman I'm with, Vanessa, I say. She's my new partner. Max looks at me like I'm crazy. Why would I run out in the rain to tell him this? That's great, he says. You always wanted someone to go into business with. I shake my head. Vanessa is my partner, I repeat. We're together. Before I know it, I'm headed back to Vanessa, who's waiting with the grocery cart under the dry overhang of the store. I put my hands on either side of her face and I kiss her. I hope Max is watching. I hope the whole world is. When Vanessa proposed, I never even thought twice about saying yes, but I would have been entirely happy to get married at a courthouse in Massachusetts instead of having a big ceremony and reception. Come on, Zoe, she said. There are 2 times in your life everyone you love comes together, your wedding and your funeral, and I know I won't have nearly as much fun at the second one. Unlike me, she'd never walked down an aisle. She'd never been fed wedding cake or danced until there were blisters on her feet. If that was what she wanted, I wasn't going to deny her the experience. But to get married, we had to cross the Rhode Island border. We had to find a minister who was supportive of gay marriage. We had to visit a lawyer to give each other power of attorney for medical decisions, to become beneficiaries on each other's life insurance policies. I wasn't ashamed of wanting a lifetime with Vanessa, but I was ashamed of the steps I had to take in order to do it made me feel like a second-class citizen. I know it's supposed to be good luck if it rains on your wedding, but I'm not sure what it means when there's a blizzard. The freak April snowstorm the weathermen have predicted has taken a turn for the worse, and now if a weather disaster isn't enough, there's a plumbing snafu too. The pipes burst at the restaurant where we were planning to hold our reception, and our wedding planner, Joel, has to frantically find a replacement. Joel sticks his head inside the door. Are you ready? He says. I take a deep breath. I guess so. You know, I tried to get you a gay magician for the reception, but it didn't work out. He vanished with a poof. I follow Joel out of the women's room and wait while he gets Vanessa. She's wearing her white suit. Wow, she says, staring at me. Joel leads us through a tangle of gears and pulleys, past stacks of boxes and through a doorway. A string quartet begins to play. Together, Vanessa and I step onto the aisle of the bowling alley we will be walking down. This AMC Lanes and Games, the only spot in town that Joel could rent out completely on short notice, doesn't even look like a bowling alley anymore. There are vines woven with lilies lining the gutters on either side of the aisle. There are fairy lights strung overhead and on the walls. The pinball machines are draped in velvet and covered with heaping bowls of shrimp. The air hockey table sports a champagne fountain. What a quintessentially lesbian wedding, Vanessa whispers to me. Who else would tie the knot in a room full of balls? We are still laughing when we reach the end of the makeshift aisle. The minister's waiting, wearing a purple shawl edged with a rainbow of beading. Vanessa and Zoe, she says, may you avoid splits and always play a perfect game. Now I can only say what's been said thousands of times before, thousands of weddings. It took us a long time to figure out how to end our ceremony. You can't very well say, I now pronounce you husband and wife. By the same token, I now pronounce you partners sounds somehow lesser than, not a true marriage. Our minister smiles. Zoe, Vanessa, she says, you may kiss the bride. Just in case you aren't sure that the Highlands Inn is lesbian friendly after you call its phone number, 877-LESBIAN, there is a row of Adirondack chairs in all the colors of the rainbow set on a hilltop. When Vanessa had first given me the brochure for this place, I had balked. Did we have to hide out with fellow lesbian couples during our honeymoon? Couldn't we go to the Poconos or Paris like other newlyweds? Well, Vanessa had said, we could, but there we wouldn't be like other newlyweds. Here we are. Here no one bats an eye if we're holding hands or checking into a room with a queen-size bed. Sometimes it's better to sort like with like, Vanessa says at breakfast one morning when we're dining at the inn. It's just, you know, you grow up Catholic, and it's kind of nice to talk about the Stations of the Cross and not get a blank stare back in return. There's something nice about being with your people. Full disclosure, I say, I didn't know the Cross had stations. We're interrupted by the shriek of a toddler who's run into the breakfast room, nearly crashing into a waitress. His two mothers are in hot pursuit. "Travis!" The boy giggles and looks over his shoulder before he ducks under our tablecloth, a human puppy. "I'm sorry," one of the women says, scooping him up. "We're still looking for his off switch." "Maybe," Vanessa says. "That'll be us someday." Immediately I feel it, that flush of utter failure. "You know I can't have kids." "Of course I know that." Vanessa threads her fingers through mine. "But Zoe," she says, "I can." An embryo is frozen at the blastocyst stage, which is approximately 5 days old. In a sealed straw filled with cryoprotective fluid, a human antifreeze, it is gradually cooled to minus 196 degrees Celsius. The straw is then attached to an aluminum cane and stored in a canister of liquid nitrogen. It costs $800 a year to keep the embryo frozen. When thawed at room temperature, the cryoprotectant fluid is diluted so the embryo can be restored to its culture medium. It's assessed for damage to see if it's suitable for transfer. If the embryo survives mostly intact, it has a good chance of leading to a successful pregnancy. Cellular damage, if not extensive, is not a deal breaker. Some embryos have been frozen for a decade and have gone on to produce healthy children. According to a 2008 study in the journal Fertility and Sterility, when patients who didn't want more children were asked about their frozen embryos, 53% didn't want to donate them to others because they didn't want their children finding an unknown brother or sister one day, and they didn't want other parents raising their child. 66% said they'd donate the embryos for research, but the option wasn't always available at clinics. 20% said they'd keep the embryos frozen forever. Often, the husband and wife are not in agreement. Max and I have 3 frozen embryos swimming in liquid nitrogen in a clinic in Wilmington, Rhode Island. And now that Vanessa's mentioned it, I can't eat or drink or sleep or concentrate. All I can do is think of these babies who are waiting for me. Vanessa and I are standing at the reception window of the fertility clinic. We have a meeting to discuss a frozen embryo transfer. The nurse finds my name on her computer. "There you are. Did you bring your husband today?" I feel my face flush. "I'm remarried. When I called, you said I needed to come in with my spouse." The nurse looks up at me and then Vanessa. "Wait here," she says. "Zoe?" At the sound of my name, I turn to find Dr. Anne Fourchette, the clinic director, walking toward me. "Why don't you two come into my office?" She's a striking woman with a fall of prematurely white hair, a bone-crushing handshake, and a drawl that extends my name by 3 or 4 syllables. "I'm afraid there was a misunderstanding," she says. "Your ex-husband has to sign off on the release of the embryos. Once he does that, we can schedule a transfer." "But Max divorced me because he doesn't want to be a father." "Well, then it's really all academic," Dr. Fourchette replies. That familiar wave of disappointment hits me. Once again, this baby track is full of hurdles. "All right," Vanessa says briskly. "Is there something Max has to sign? Some form?" Dr. Fourchette hands her a sheet of paper. "You just have him send it back to us, and as soon as we get it, we'll call you." She smiles at us. "Congratulations to you both." Vanessa and I don't speak until we're in the elevator. "You have to talk to him," she says. "And say what? Hey, I'm married to Vanessa and we want you to be our sperm donor." "It's not like that," Vanessa points out. "The embryos already exist. What plans does he have for them?" The doors slide open on the ground floor. A woman is waiting with a baby in a stroller. The baby is wearing a white hooded sweater with little bear ears sticking up. "I'll try," I say. I find Max at a client's house, raking out mulch and twigs from the flower beds in preparation for spring landscaping. "Nice place," I say, looking around the grounds of this McMansion. Max wheels at the sound of my voice. "Zoe, what are you doing here?" "I was wondering if you have a minute to talk." He wipes the perspiration from his forehead, nods. "Sure, you want to sit down?" He gestures to a stone bench in the center of a hibernating garden. The granite is cold beneath the fabric of my jeans. It is so strange to encounter an ex. It's as if you're in a foreign film and what you're saying face to face has nothing to do with the subtitles flowing beneath you. We are so careful not to touch, although once upon a time I slept plastered to him like lichen on a rock. "I got married," I blurt out. For a second, Max looks completely baffled. Then his eyes widen. "You mean you and Vanessa?" "Yeah." He looks like he's about to be sick. "I'm glad you told me face to face. It would have been really tough to hear that through the grapevine." "There's more," I say, swallowing. "Vanessa and I want to start a family. Vanessa's young and healthy, and there's no reason she can't have a baby." "I can think of a pretty major one," Max says. "Actually, that's why I'm here." There are 3 embryos left over from when you and I were trying, and I'd like your permission to use them. With a shaking hand, I pulled a form from the clinic out of my purse. Please, Max, I'm begging you. He takes the piece of paper, but he doesn't look at it. He doesn't look at me. Think about it? I ask. He nods and then folds the paper in half and half again, tucks it into his back pocket. I wonder if he'll even look at it. If he'll tear it up in little pieces and rake it into the dirt. If he'll send it through the wash in his jeans so he can't read the words anymore. I start walking down to the curb where I've left my car, but I'm stopped by Max's voice. Zoe, he calls out. I still pray for you, you know. I face him. I don't need your prayers, Max, I say. Just your consent. I like Elle and Hannah. Does every baby name have to be a palindrome, Vanessa asks. We sprawl across the living room floor, surrounded by baby name books. I've been pregnant 3 times, and I've avoided doing just this, hoping. It's a lot easier to not be disappointed when you have no expectations. And yet this time, I almost can't help myself. There was something about the way I left things with Max that makes me believe this might actually happen. After all, he didn't say no right away, which is what I expected. Which means he's still thinking, and that has to be good, right? The doorbell rings. A man is standing on the porch. He's wearing a baseball cap and a Red Sox sweatshirt and doesn't strike me as a serial killer, so I open the door. Are you Zoe Baxter? Yes. He pulls a sheaf of blue papers out of his back pocket. You've been served. I open the folded document, and words leap off the page at me. 1. The plaintiff is the biological father of these preborn children, which were conceived during a heterosexual, God-condoned constitutional marriage for the purposes of being raised in a heterosexual, God-condoned constitutional marriage. 2. Since these preborn children were conceived, the parties have divorced. 3. Since the final judgment, the defendant has engaged in a deviant homosexual lifestyle. Zoe? Vanessa sounds like she's 1,000 miles away. I open my mouth, but nothing comes out. There's no language to describe a betrayal this big. Vanessa starts flipping through the pages so quickly, I expect them to burst into flame. What is this garbage? Equilibrium is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. You can be punched without ever fielding a blow. It's from Max, I say. He's trying to take away our baby. Thank you. So the second song that Ellen is going to play is called Faith. And this is Ellen's favorite on the CD. Or it was back in April anyway.
Yeah, it still is.
Faith is actually tied into a chapter that Max narrates, which is a little different. But faith is Zoe's way of expressing what belief means to different people. Obviously, to Max, who has joined this very right-wing evangelical anti-gay church, belief means believing in a higher power. To Zoe, though, it means something quite different. It means maybe for the first time believing in herself and believing in someone else who has her back, which is her new partner. So anyway, this is a very quiet, very beautiful song. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to tell you the coolest story about Norton. You tell him about Norton. You tell him.
Well, about 3 months ago, we were approached via email from a no-kill animal shelter called the Palmetto Animal League down in South Carolina. Wanted to use this song for a video they were making. So we did a contract and they got permission to use the song, but we really didn't know what it was for, and I kind of actually forgot about it. And then a couple weeks ago, the woman contacted me and sent me the video. It's on YouTube. You can see it. It's called Norton's Story, The Miracle Dog.
It's also on my Facebook page,
yes.
Jodi Picoult page.
It's a really incredible video about a pit bull that was used as a bait dog in the fighting rings, and somebody abandoned him, and somebody brought him to this shelter, and they rehabilitated him into a really good-looking, happy, loving dog. And so it's very moving. It starts out looking very sad, but it has a very happy ending, and they use this song to go with it. So I think I was more excited about that than the book, because I just love
Friends are for.
Yeah. Didn't say there'd be no pain, instead you made me strong. You didn't say I'd have a voice but you gave me a song. You didn't promise safety, but you made sure that I hid. I know there is a reason that I found you when I did. Take another breath, although I cannot spot the air. Take that first step, even though I can't make out the stairs. Faith is being sure of things that others cannot see. I believe in you because you believed in me. I'd rather walk on water than skate upon thin ice. I'm learning what is gained from selfless sacrifice. I'm stepping off a cliff, beneath my feet is sky. But if you cannot catch me, you'll teach me how to fly. I know the moon will pull the tide behind it every night. I know there's electricity because I spy the light. Faith is being sure of things that others cannot see. I believe in you because you believe in me. The fairy tale is different from what I used to dream. The castle's not a castle, love's never what it seems. Don't need a happy ending, just a second start. Won't listen to my mind, 'cause I'm leading with my heart. And even when it doesn't shine, I know there will be sun. Can't predict the future, but tomorrow's gonna come. Faith is being sure of things that others cannot see. I believe in you because you believe in me. Ooh.
Big screen. What was that like? What kind of control did you have?
Sometimes I think I can get through an event without anyone asking me. The question's about My Sister's Keeper and the movie version. How many of you saw the movie? How many of you hated the ending? Thank you. Okay. So, the story is, when you give up the rights to Hollywood, it's like giving a baby up for adoption. And sometimes you are lucky and you give your baby to a great home and she winds up having a great education and going on to be a productive member of society. And sometimes you find out that your baby was raised by crack whores. I had the misfortune of having this book sold, and it was New Line Cinema that initially that took it. And the guy who they hired to be a director, they asked me to talk to first. His name's Nick Cassavetes. He is a very talented director. And when I talked to him, I said to him, so here's the thing. That ending is why everyone buys the book and throws it at their friend and says, "Just read this, so that I can talk to you about it." And he read it. He said, he read it and he said, "You're right. That is the only ending for the book, and I am going to keep it. And if for any reason it has to change, I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you myself." And I thought, all right, that's about the best I could do. I found out he had changed the ending when a fan who worked at a casting agency wrote me an email to tell me she had the script. And did I know? Wow. And I called Nick at home, and I said, "What's going on?" And he wouldn't talk to me. So I went to the set, and he threw me off the set.
Oh my
gosh. To this day,
gosh.
I do not know why he changed the ending, but I can tell you that the movie was not nearly as commercially successful as they thought it would be. What a shock, because their demographic were the people who liked the book. So, unfortunately, you really don't know what's going to happen. There were great things about that movie. It was beautifully acted. There were a lot of wonderful moments, and then, they came to this pizza party in the hospital room, and it all just kind of went downhill from there. And, it is what it is, unfortunately. But the answer is no. You have no control as an author. Maybe J.K. Rowling does, but I'm no J.K. Rowling. And I don't know. Well, a lot of people ask me, will it keep you from selling the rights to a movie again? And the answer to that is no, because I can tell you that Nick Cassavetes will never direct one of my books. But on the other hand, I do think, in a way, ironically, so many people in Hollywood got the message. I had said so vocally, "You're making a big mistake," and it panned out that way, that now when people come after me for movie rights, they actually say, "But we want you to be the one who has some creative control. We want you to be a producer." So I have far more clout now than I ever did, which is funny. And the good news is that Sing You Home actually has been optioned by Ellen DeGeneres.
Wow.
And only hope it will be a better experience. Yes, no problem.
How do you get all of these people to talk to you about these incredibly personal parts of their lives?
I don't know. The truth is, I do nothing different than I have 20 years ago when I was starting out. I write a nice letter, and I find someone, first of all, I network until I find someone who knows what I need to know. And I say, "Hi, my name is Jodi Picoult. I write novels, and I am writing a book about blah, 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 and I hear you're an expert on blah, blah, blah. Do you think that I could speak to you, shadow you, whatever, at your convenience?" And then I call them up, and I keep calling until they take my call. And then I basically pick a time that works for them. And if they say 3 in the morning on Thursday, I go, "Excellent, where should I meet you?" And, and really, for 20 years, I have only had one person say no. Wow. I was writing Keeping Faith, and I was trying in that book really to offend all religions equally. So I had talked to a really great priest in White River Junction who was wonderful. I had talked to a terrific Episcopal minister who talked to me about tent revivals, and I really needed a rabbi. And it sounds like a joke, right? And so I went to Dartmouth, because I live near Dartmouth, and I wrote this guy a note and said, "Can I meet with you? This is what I'm writing about." He said yes. I went to his office, and he said, "If you're going to write this book, you are going to perpetuate mistruths that have dogged Judaism for 5,000 years. And you need to go to rabbinical school before you write this book." And I was like, "What?" And he didn't want to talk to me. And he actually wound up getting fired a week later. It had nothing to do with me.
Wow.
But he clearly was not thinking clearly. And I still needed a rabbi. So I networked again, and I finally found this woman who had a congregation in Philadelphia. She had been raised Catholic and converted to Judaism, and she happened to be a lesbian. And I thought, well, she's got to be open-minded, right? She was fabulous. She was so good helping me with my research that I've actually been back to her several times since then for books that had something that related to the Jewish faith. So I've just been, I think if you're a nice person and you ask nicely, in America, most people really like to be experts for a day. I'll take one more question, and you're it.
Plain Truth.
Yeah.
How did you get? I know.
How did I get to the Amish in Plain Truth?
I know.
Right.
I never even knew that story. So how did you find that out?
So the question is about Plain Truth, which I, of course, and most people refer to as my Amish book because it's about the Amish. And really, the reason I wrote that book was because of my mother. We were at her house, and she said, you want to write a book about the Amish because nobody knows about them, and if anyone could find out, it would be you. So I actually started on a message board. Now, I was smart enough to know that none of them actually had computers, but I had to start somewhere. And there was this message board online, and I asked a couple of questions, and this Mennonite woman wrote me back. And Mennonites do a lot for the Amish that they won't do for themselves. They drive them places, they get on the computer for them, they make phone calls for them, things like that. So this Mennonite woman wrote me back and answered my questions, and I wrote her 5 more questions, and she wrote me back, and I wrote her 10 more questions, and we struck up this relationship. And finally, after a few months, she said, you know, you ought to come down and see for yourself. I'll take you around. And I said, that would be so great. Do you think you could arrange for me to meet some of your Amish friends? And excuse me, she went one step further and arranged for me to live with an Amish dairy farming family for a week. So I go down there and I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. I've hit the mother load, right? And it's July, dead July. It's about 15,000 degrees, and I'm wearing, you know, like leggings and a long skirt and long sleeves because I want to be very modest. And I'm not dressed like this. And I get out of the car and I introduce myself to the father who's out in the fields. And he looks at me and he goes, and he keeps working, like totally ignoring me. And I'm like, all right, I need a game plan. So they have 3 kids, and I have 3 kids, and their oldest at the time was 8, and at the time my oldest was 8, and I think 8-year-olds are really universal. So I went to the 8-year-old and I said, hi, I'd love for you to introduce me to all the cows. So he took me down to the milking barn where I met all 40 of the cows by name. And we played all afternoon. We played tag in the cornfields, and we caught fireflies in jelly jars. And at night when we went to bed, I said, your parents are going to tell you not to wake me up for the milking, but I would really like it if you did. And he came and he got me at 4 in the morning. And I went downstairs and I said I would like to help. They looked at me like I was nuts, but they gave me pages ripped out of a phone book and a spray bottle of iodine solution, and I got to walk around and wipe down the teats of the cows, which was exciting because I don't do that every day. And when we finished, it was about 6 in the morning, and they do a Bible reading, and they usually read the German version of the Bible, but I got them to take down the English version of the Bible, and they read along so that I could read along with them. And this is like the first thing you learn about the Amish, that if you give a little, they will give a little, and the deeds speak much louder than words do for the Amish. And so the more I did to help them, the more they were willing to talk to me. The one thing they really wanted to know was when I was leaving. Because at the time, Oprah had done this whole Simplify Your Life movement, and they thought I was going to put on an apron and go, woo, I'm Amish now, and just stay forever. And they really didn't want that. And once they knew I had a family to go home to, they were more than happy to tell me anything I wanted to know. The only thing in that book that I did not experience myself was church, because they have church every other Sunday. And I was there on the off Sunday. So instead, I had to meet with the bishop and the elders to walk through what would happen at the church service and then at a members meeting, which are held in individual houses. And so that should be accurate too, based on their descriptions. But one of the cool things that happened after the book was written was I got an email from a guy who actually was gay, and you really can't be gay in Amish. And so he was no longer Amish. He was living in New York. He had left the faith. And he had read the book, and he said, you got everything right, which is so cool. And I said, you know, that's great. And he goes, yeah, but even more important, my mom and my sister have read it, and they said you got everything right.
Wow.
So that's really cool. Well, I really would like to thank you all for coming out here tonight on the inaugural